6 million years ago, the African continent held a secret that would change the planet forever. Our ancestors were not the strongest or fastest animals. They were vulnerable, hiding in the high canopy. But the Earth's climate shifted. The dense forests shrank, replaced by vast, open, dangerous savannahs. To survive in this brutal new world, they had to do something unprecedented. They had to stand up. This is the epic story of humankind, a journey from the trees to the absolute conquest of Earth. Deep in the ancient forests of Chad, an early primate named Sahelanthropus took the first crucial step. Its spinal cord entered the skull from underneath, a biological clue pointing to upright walking. Millions of years passed. In the humid woodlands of Ethiopia, Ardipithecus emerged, pushing evolution further. Ardipithecus still possessed grasping toes for climbing, but its pelvis was slowly adapting for walking on two legs. Bipedalism was dangerous. It exposed their vital organs and made them incredibly slow compared to four-legged predators. But walking upright freed their hands. They could now carry food, hold infants, and eventually wield weapons. Around 4 million years ago, the African forests rapidly retreated, forcing our ancestors into the open grasslands. Here, Australopithecus afarensis thrived. The most famous fossil of this species is known simply as Lucy. Lucy was only 3.5 feet tall, but she walked completely upright under the scorching sun. Standing tall allowed them to spot terrifying predators, like the saber-toothed cats, over the tall savanna grass. It also reduced the amount of body surface exposed to direct sunlight, helping them stay cool. They were scavengers, constantly on the move, picking at the leftovers of massive apex predators. To crack open bones for rich marrow, Australopithecus began using simple, unshaped rocks as primitive hammers. This simple act of using a stone was the tiny spark that would eventually build modern civilization. 2.5 million years ago, a new hominid emerged. They were the handymen. Homo habilis had a significantly larger brain. This allowed for a revolutionary leap in prehistoric thinking. Instead of just using raw stones, they deliberately fractured rocks to create incredibly sharp cutting edges. These sharp stone flakes acted like artificial teeth, allowing them to butcher thick hides effortlessly. Meat provided massive amounts of calories and fat, fueling their incredibly energy-hungry, growing brains. They lived in highly cooperative bands, sharing food and fiercely protecting each other in the open. Yet they were still hunted. Giant prehistoric eagles and cats constantly stalked these early toolmakers. But around 2 million years ago, evolution produced a true masterpiece, Homo erectus. Homo erectus looked remarkably like us. They had long legs, shorter arms, and walked completely upright. They shed their thick body hair, developing smooth, dark skin. They could rapidly sweat to cool down. This sweating allowed them to run for hours without overheating. They became the ultimate persistence hunters. Their tools evolved too. They crafted the Acheulean hand axe, the ultimate prehistoric multi-tool. With better weapons and limitless endurance, they were no longer just scavengers. They became active predators. But the greatest achievement of Homo erectus was the mastery of a terrifying force of nature. They learned to control fire. It provided ultimate warmth against the cold and illuminated the darkness. Cooking meat was revolutionary. It broke down toxins and unlocked massive amounts of digestible energy. Fire also provided absolute security. For the first time in history, Apex predators feared the hominids. Around the campfire, deep social bonds were forged. It was the absolute birthplace of human culture. Armed with fire and advanced tools, Homo erectus did something no hominid had ever done. They left Africa. They expanded across Eurasia, surviving in radically different climates, paving the way for our species. As hominids spread into the freezing environments of Ice Age Europe, they evolved into a new species. Meet the Neanderthals. They were shorter, significantly wider, and incredibly heavily muscled compared to modern humans. Their robust, stocky bodies were a perfect biological adaptation to conserve heat in the brutal Ice Age. They were the undisputed apex predators of Europe, hunting the largest and most dangerous megafauna alive. Lacking projectile weapons, Neanderthals used heavy thrusting spears, forcing them into terrifying, close-quarters combat. This brutal hunting style resulted in massive trauma. Their skeletons show fracture patterns similar to modern rodeo riders, but they were not just violent brutes. They possessed profound empathy, caring for their severely injured and elderly. Neanderthals were also the first hominids to intentionally bury their dead, placing flowers inside the graves. They had large brains, complex social structures, and were perfectly adapted to rule the frozen north. But back in the scorching plains of Africa, a completely different evolutionary path was unfolding. Around 300,000 years ago, the ultimate survivors appeared in Africa. Anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens. We lacked the raw muscle and thick bones of the Neanderthals. We were physically weaker, but vastly more agile. Our greatest weapon was not physical. It was a massive cognitive revolution inside our high-rounded skulls. We developed complex language and abstract thinking. We did not just use tools. We engineered them. We invented projectile weapons. This allowed us to kill massive prey from a completely safe distance. We were the first species to create art, painting our stories onto the walls of deep, dark caves. We formed vast, complex trading networks, exchanging tools, shells, and knowledge across thousands of miles. But extreme climate fluctuations struck Africa, threatening our species with complete extinction. Around 70,000 years ago, a small band of survivors made a desperate decision. They left Africa forever. As they pushed deeper into Eurasia, they were about to come face to face with the undisputed kings of the Ice Age. When Homo sapiens entered Ice Age Europe, they encountered the Neanderthals, two human species, face to face. The contrast was stark. The Neanderthal was a heavily muscled brute, while sapiens were tall and slender. But sapiens had a massive technological advantage. They used spear throwers to hunt safely from a distance. Sapiens also possessed complex language. They could strategize, trade, and organize large hunting networks across valleys. The two species did not just fight, they interbred. Today, most humans carry a small percentage of Neanderthal DNA. However, as the Ice Age reached its freezing peak, survival became incredibly difficult for everyone. The massive megafauna that Neanderthals relied upon began to vanish from the frozen European landscape. Neanderthals were specialized ambush hunters. Without massive prey, their heavy energy-demanding bodies began to starve. Sapiens adapted instantly. They invented bone fish hooks and sewing needles, catching small game and surviving the deep freeze. Slowly, inevitably, the Neanderthals were outcompeted. Around 40,000 years ago, the very last Neanderthal died. For the first time in millions of years, the Earth was home to only one hominid species. Us, Homo sapiens, became the undisputed rulers of the planet, pushing further into completely uncharted territories. They built primitive boats and navigated the treacherous open ocean, becoming the first humans to discover Australia. They adapted their bodies and clothing to survive the absolute frozen tundras of Siberia and the Arctic. Following herds of mammoths, they crossed the frozen Bering Land Bridge, finally stepping foot into the Americas. Within a few thousand years, human footprints marked every single habitable continent on the Earth. For over 95% of our history, we were nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving constantly with the seasons. We possessed an intimate, encyclopedic knowledge of the natural world, understanding every plant, animal, and star. We even formed an incredible alliance with another apex predator, domesticating the gray wolf into the first dogs. With man and dog hunting perfectly together, no animal on Earth could escape our combined intelligence. Around 12,000 years ago, the turbulent Ice Age finally ended. The Earth's climate stabilized. In the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, humans made the most important discovery in history: seeds. We realized that by planting seeds and tending to them, we could grow our own food. For the first time, we no longer had to chase herds of animals. We could settle down. Temporary skin tents were replaced by permanent houses made of mud, clay, and stone. Villages were born. We captured wild cattle and sheep, domesticating them for a constant supply of milk, meat, and wool. Agriculture produced a massive surplus of food. This triggered an unprecedented global population explosion. Because not everyone had to farm, humans became specialists: potters, builders, soldiers, and leaders. Villages rapidly expanded into the world's first cities. Massive walls were built to protect our wealth. To keep track of grain and taxes, we invented writing. Prehistory ended, and recorded history began. We learned to extract metal from rocks, forging unstoppable weapons and tools of bronze and iron. Tribes turned into kingdoms, and kingdoms forged massive empires that spanned across entire continents. In just a few thousand years, we went from stone tools to colossal pyramids and temples. We eventually unlocked the power of coal and oil, machines replacing human hands in the Industrial Revolution. Today, massive megacities of glass and steel touch the sky. We have conquered the entire globe. We have even left our home planet, leaving human footprints on the silent, gray dust of the moon. Yet, we possess weapons capable of destroying the very world our ancestors fought so hard to conquer. Beneath our modern clothes and advanced technology, we still possess the exact same brains as the Ice Age hunters. We are the last hominids standing, the absolute masters of Earth. But our journey has just begun.